Who was the British doctor who tried to prevent the killing of construction workers by African lions? In 1898, a team of people from England, India, and Africa fought to survive against a pair of male lions who repeatedly attacked workers at a railroad construction site in Tsavo, Kenya. Their story is told in the 1996 film The Ghost in the Darkness, starring Val Kilmer as the main protagonist, Colonel John Henry Patterson. But as you watch the film, did you ever wonder about this guy? He was the British doctor who tried to save the lives of those under attack and, spoilers ahead, lost his life in a fight against the lions to save his own field hospital. The website for the Internet Movie Database names him Dr. David Hawthorne, played by Bernard Hill. But was the doctor a real person? Reading through Patterson's book again, I found no mention of a man named Hawthorne, but another name came up consistently. He was Dr. John Brock, an assistant medical officer for the Uganda Railway at the time of the attacks. The two resources I've found on him list two different middle names and two different birth dates, in 1862 and 1867. But the notes are consistent about a Dr. John Brock stationed in Tsavo in 1898. Let's see what Patterson had to say about him. Patterson first mentioned Dr. Brock soon after two male lions started attacking workers at the railroad. And after Patterson and the first medical officer, Dr. Rose, were stalked by lions while sleeping in a tent with no protection. Warned by this experience, I at once arranged to move my quarters and went to join forces with Dr. Brock, who had just arrived at Tsavo to take medical charge of the district. We shared a hut of palm leaves and boughs, which we had constructed on the eastern side of the river, close to the old caravan route leading to Uganda. And we had it surrounded by a circular boma, or thorn fence, about 70 yards in diameter, well made and thick and high. For the sake of coolness, Brock and I used to sit out under the veranda of this hut in the evenings. We therefore kept our rifles within easy reach, and cast many an anxious glance out into the inky darkness beyond the circle of the firelight. On one or two occasions, we found in the morning that the lions had come quite close to the fence. The hospital was protected by a good thick fence. It seemed, however, as if barriers were of no avail against the two demons, for before very long one of them found a weak spot in the boma and broke through. The lion jumped onto and broke through a tent in which 8 patients were lying. 2 of them were badly wounded, while a third poor wretch was seized and dragged off bodily through the thorn fence. The doctor and I found them on our arrival soon after dawn next morning. We at once decided to move the hospital closer to the main camp. A fresh site was prepared, a stout hedge built round the enclosure, and all the patients were moved in before nightfall. Next, I decided to sit up all night in the vacated boma, in the hope of getting an opportunity of bagging one of them. In the middle of my lonely vigil, I had the mortification of hearing shrieks and cries coming from the direction of the new hospital. Hurrying to the place at daylight, I found that one of the lions had jumped over the newly erected fence and had carried off the hospital water carrier. The lion managed to get its head in below the canvas, seized him by the foot, and pulled him out. Dr. Brock and I were easily able to follow his track, and soon found the remains about 400 yards away in the bush. Very little was left, and his silver ring was sent to the man's widow in India. Again it was decided to move the hospital, and again, before nightfall, the work was completed, including a still stronger and thicker boma. After a few more nights of attacks, the 2 lions next appeared close to Tsavo railroad station. And a couple of hours later, some workmen saw one of the lions stalking Dr. Brock as he was returning about dusk from the hospital. The film shows the doctor killed at the hospital, but in reality, he lived on to continue the fight at Patterson's side. In accordance with our plan to ambush the lions, the doctor and I set out after dinner for the goods wagon, and settled down to our watch about 10 o'clock. For an hour or two everything was quiet, when suddenly, to our right, a dry twig snapped, and we knew that an animal of some sort was about. I proposed to my companion that I should get out of the wagon and lie on the ground close to it. Brock, however, persuaded me to remain where I was. And a few seconds afterwards, I was heartily glad that I had taken his advice. For at that very moment, one of the man-eaters, although we did not know it, was quietly stalking us, and was even then almost within springing distance. Presently, I fancied I saw something coming very stealthily toward us, so under my breath I asked Brock whether he saw anything. There was intense silence again for a second or two. Then with a sudden bound, a huge body sprang at us. "The lion!" I shouted, and we both fired almost simultaneously. The next morning we found Brock's bullet embedded in the sand close to a footprint. It could not have missed the lion by more than an inch or two. Mine was nowhere to be found. Thus ended my first direct encounter with one of the man-eaters. Colonel Patterson's story continues with the building of the bridge. He and Dr. Brock even took time to do some bird hunting, in which Patterson called Brock a first-rate shot. Meanwhile, the attacks subsided for a while. The lions seemed to have got a bad fright the night Brock and I sat up in wait for them in the goods wagon. For they kept away from Tsavo and did not molest us in any way for some considerable time. Not, in fact, until long after Brock had left me and gone on safari, a caravan journey, to Uganda. Unfortunately, Colonel Patterson's problems were far from over. There were many more attacks by the two lions. A mutiny and attempted murder by the construction workers, and a failed attempt to trap and kill the two lions in a rail car. But finally Patterson succeeded in hunting down and killing the two lions, one after the other. An editorialist in the British magazine Spectator named Patterson as the hero, and in a piece titled "The Lions That Stopped the Railway," reported, "When the jungle twinkled with hundreds of lamps, as the shout went on from camp to camp that the first lion was dead. As the hurrying crowds fell prostrate in the midnight forest, laying their hands on his feet, and the Africans danced dances of thanksgiving, Mr. Patterson must have realized what it was to have been a hero and to deliver in the days when a man was not yet undisputed lord of the creation, and that might pass at any moment under the savage dominion of the beasts." As much praise as Patterson deserves, let's not forget all those who helped him in his victory, and all those who suffered in their simple attempt to work and provide for their families. So what happened to the good doctor after his epic battle with the man-eaters of Tsavo? His adventures with Patterson were not quite over, as they went on more hunting trips together, including the time Dr. Brock got chased up a tree by an angry rhinoceros. Plus a party of Maasai hunters showed up and offered to help them trap and kill a lion, which Patterson successfully shot. I'm not sure why the film depicted Dr. Brock as an inexperienced hunter with a defective rifle, except to merge his hunting skills into the fictional character of Charles Remington. Meanwhile, the real Dr. Brock spent time in Tsavo, Makindu, and Nairobi prior to returning home to marry Mary Edith Ethel Fleming in Southport, England, in February of 1900. He moved to South Africa in March of 1903, along with his wife and children. He and Ethel went on to have 5 children. John passed in 1919, in the Valkenburg Mental Hospital. 100 years later, actor Bernard Hill went on to lead 2 cavalry charges in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Fourth Earlingus. Thank you for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel for new videos every week or two, and see the description below for a list of books, films, and online resources referenced in this video.